Hello students, welcome to my YouTube channel. In this lecture, we are going to solve the next questions from Payload chapter Heath Williams. So far, I have done 10 questions. In this video lecture, I will do the next 5 questions. So let's start with question number 11, which is this. What is the maximum traffic load if performance takeoff mass, structural takeoff mass, performance landing mass, maximum structural landing mass, and zero fuel mass, takeoff fuel, trip fuel, DOM are given to you. So simple. Start with your step number one. Step number one is make three columns, one for takeoff mass, the second for landing mass, and the third for zero fuel mass. Now in the column of takeoff mass, you are going to write the value which is least of maximum structural takeoff mass, performance limited takeoff mass, or ramp mass minus taxi fuel, or ramp mass minus taxi fuel. So over here, the value which is less in number is 85,000 kg. Is 85,000 kg. So between 95,000, which is performance limited takeoff mass, and maximum structural takeoff mass 85,000, 85 is the lesser value. So I'm going to write 85 here. Next, in case of landing mass column, you are going to use that value which is the least of performance limited landing mass and maximum structural limited landing mass, and to that you are going to add trip fuel. You are going to add trip fuel. So, the value less in number between performance limited landing mass and maximum structural landing mass is 55,000 kg. So 55 plus trip fuel. The trip fuel is 19,000. So 19 plus 19. So 55 plus 19 is 65, 74. Next, zero fuel mass. In the zero fuel mass column, you are going to write maximum zero fuel mass plus takeoff fuel or fuel on board, which is equal to how much? Maximum zero fuel mass is 62,000 kg or 62, and fuel on board is 22,000 kg, so 22. So 2 plus 2, 4, 6 plus 2, 8. So now out of these three values, you have to select that value which is least in number, and that value is 74. So 74 is your takeoff mass value. So regulated takeoff mass is 74 or 74,000 kg. Okay. Step number 2 is use the formula takeoff mass equals to payload plus dry operating mass plus fuel on board. Substitute the values. Takeoff mass is 74,000. So 74. Payload we have to find out. Dry operating mass is 45,000 kg. So 45. And fuel on board is 22. So 22,000 kg. So payload equals to 74 minus 45 plus 22. So 74 minus 67, which is equal to 7 or 7,000 kg. So payload is equal to 7,000 kg. So the correct answer here will be alpha, 7,000 kg. Okay. Yeah. Let's go to question number 12. What is the maximum allowable traffic load if performance takeoff mass, structural takeoff mass, zero fuel mass, landing mass, again performance and structural, DOM, takeoff fuel, trip fuel are given to you? Step number 1. Make three columns, one for takeoff mass, the second one for landing mass, and the third one for zero fuel mass. In the takeoff mass, you are going to write a value which is the least of performance limited takeoff mass, maximum structural takeoff mass, ramp mass, minus taxi fuel. Okay, so any value which is the least of them. So over here, the value for performance limited takeoff mass is 95,000 kg. For structural takeoff mass is 78,000 kg. So the correct answer will be 78 because that is a value which is less than 95. Next, in case of landing mass, you are going to select that value which is the less in number, okay, between performance limited landing mass and maximum structural landing mass. So that value is going to be, so let's write here, any value less in number, less of performance limited landing mass and maximum structural landing mass. So that will be equal to, in this case, 55 and 50. So the value which is less in number is 50. 50,000 plus your trip fuel. So trip fuel is how much? 15,500, 15 decimal 5. So 15 decimal 5, which is equal to 65 decimal 5. Next, zero fuel mass column, write the formula. Maximum zero fuel mass plus fuel on board or takeoff fuel. So that is equal to, zero fuel mass is 62,000 kg. So 62, okay. And fuel on board or takeoff fuel is 17,000 or 17. The correct answer will be 79. So now you have to select that takeoff value which is the least of these three values. So one is 78, second is 65 and a half, the third is 79. Okay, so the value least in number is 65 decimal 5. Therefore, regulated takeoff mass equals to 65 decimal 5 or 65,500 kg. Step number 2. Step number 2 is use your formula. Takeoff mass equals to DOM plus payload plus takeoff fuel or fuel on board, right? So takeoff mass is how much? 65.5. So 65.5. Dry operating mass is 30,000 kg. So 30 plus payload plus takeoff fuel or fuel on board is 17,000. So plus 70. Payload will be equal to 65.5 minus 30 plus 17. So 65.5 minus 47, which is equal to 18.5 or 18,500 kg. So payload will be equal to 18,500 kg. Okay. Let's go to question 13. Again, what is the traffic load if performance takeoff mass, structural takeoff mass, zero fuel mass, performance landing mass, maximum structural landing mass, DOM, takeoff fuel and trip fuel are given to you. So again, start with your step 1. Three columns, takeoff, landing and zero fuel. So in the takeoff mass, you are going to use the value which is less in number between performance limited takeoff mass or and correction maximum structural takeoff mass. In case of landing mass column, you are going to use the value which is less of performance limited landing mass and maximum structural landing mass. To that you are going to add trip fuel In case of zero fuel mass column, you are going to use the formula maximum zero fuel mass plus takeoff fuel. Now here, in case of takeoff mass, the performance limited takeoff mass is 90 and maximum structural mass is 100. So the value less in number is 90. So right here 90. Next, in case of landing, performance limited landing mass is 80, maximum structural landing mass is 78. So write 78 plus trip fuel. Trip fuel is 23,000 kg, so write 23. Zero fuel mass, maximum zero fuel mass is 85,000, so write 85. Takeoff fuel or fuel on board is 26,000 or write 26. 78 plus 23 is 101. 85 plus 26 is 111. So now out of these three possible takeoff values, you are going to use that value which is the least in number, and that value is 90. So our regulated takeoff mass will be equal to 90 or 90,000 kg. 90 or 90,000 kg. Step number 2, use the formula takeoff mass equals to payload plus fuel on board plus DOM. Therefore, 90 equals to payload. Fuel on board is 23, fuel on board is 26,000 kg, so 26. And DOM is 35,000, so 26 plus 35. Therefore, payload will be equal to 90 minus 26 plus 35. Therefore, payload, traffic load, whatever will be equal to 90 minus 26 plus 35, 61. Therefore, payload will be equal to 39 or 39,000 kg.